for coming to attend this session. And as Dr. Banerjee has already informed that the topic, the talk that I would be delivering today is something new. You would be thinking that Dalit literature, to talk on Dalit literature, how can that be new? Yes, I know that for past couple of decades. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. So for past couple of decades, Dalit literature, if I may use the term mushrooming, yes, because when I was doing my PhD, I really had tough time to procure the texts. If the translations were not, translated texts were not available then. But then in the last decade, I have seen that yes, many students, many scholars are interested in reading Dalit literature. Many universities, many colleges have included Dalit literature in their curriculum. And yes, now we can see more of Dalit literature texts available. The visibility on the bookshelves is increasing. So yes, this is not a very new area, but the part that I have taken, let me first share my slide. Sir, Dr. Banerjee is saying host disabled participant screen sharing. So what am I supposed to do? Because I'm very new to this. So should I click on this?
Just a second.
Because I have a small presentation to show it to you people.
Just a second.
In the meanwhile, I can just keep talking to the participants. Yes, I won't say that it is a new area that I'll be discussing, but one aspect that I have taken up today, this is, I found comparatively quite new, because today I will not talk on the evolution of Dalit literature, the writers of this new genre of literature, but I would be focusing on Dalit youth. Dalit youth, again, youth is a very relative term. So for me, like the definition that I have taken of youth is the last decade, the generation of the last decade of 20th century and the 21st century. That is the third generation of Dalit community. This is the definition of youth, Dalit youth, that I'll be talking on. Sir, is the problem resolved now? Can I share?
Yeah, please try. I've just given a multiple.
Yeah. It's happening now. Yeah. Just a minute. We all are like new to this.
I can see your slide.
Okay. One by one only. I just wanted to begin the slideshow if that can be possible. But then, okay. I don't know why it's not happening. The slideshow. Okay. Right. Okay. Fine. So to begin, as I said that the talk would emphasize only on the Dalit youth, and as Dr. Banerjee has introduced already, that this is something that I have begun to read. I've begun to explore this area. So what today I'll be doing is just sharing what all I have explored till date. So we all can take up from here, and that's it's just a sharings, and so that's why I would be happy to have your observations, because I know that the people would be reading on that literature. So I want to use this platform as a sharing of thoughts, more of a lecture delivered. So coming to the topic, the title of my talk is Registering Resistance, Celebrating Dalithood, Reading Contemporary Dalit Activism. So when we see this title, there are four terms to be seen: uh, resistance, celebration, Dalithood, and activism. These are the four terms I want to talk about. Now, when we are saying resistance, that is, if resistance is there, so there would be some kind of discrimination. See, we all are open-minded, and we need to be open-minded. We just cannot have, we just cannot think that no, the policies, the government policies have changed, and that's why to talk about discrimination is a thing of the past. No, I would say that discrimination exists. It may have changed its form, it may have changed its degree, but discrimination is there, and that is why there is resistance. But the kind of resistance that we were having in, say, in 19th century, say the time of Jyotiba Phule, Periyar and Achyutanand and all these activists, the kind of resistance we had then at that time, it has changed to the coming to the third generation. And that is why, along with resistance, I am talking about celebration. And in the slides to come, I will talk about what they are celebrating about. um, uh, Sorry, what is this? Okay. Okay, there are certain things keep popping up. So now they are celebrating their Dalithood, and we'll elaborate. We'll discuss these terms later in the presentation. But to begin with, I just wanted my audience to emphasize on these terms: resistance, celebration, Dalithood, and Dalit activism. Now, what I have found that the young Dalits, the third generation Dalit, what they are doing, they're resisting against this politics of exclusion, but they have changed their strategies. What their strategies are, I'll talk about. They have changed these strategies, and their resistance involves a kind of celebration. And they are now not ashamed of their, identity. That is why Dalithood is being celebrated. They're not ashamed of their identity. They are celebrating their true selves. They are foregrounding their existence. You could say that they are. There was a time when they were camouflaging. The Dalits were camouflaging their identity. They were, kind of using common surnames, which would not declare their real identity. But the new generation Dalit is not doing this. So they're kind of taking pride in what they are, in what in their Dalit identity. And that's why I see that how this third generation Dalit, or Gen X, or the millennia Dalits, they are celebrating their Dalithood. So now they are kind of declaring, this is what I say, that they are declaring their identity with a sense of pride. And when we talk about contemporary Dalit activism, yes, uh, because as I said in the beginning, the the challenges of this generation are quite different. The issues that they are facing are quite different. Hence, it is necessary that they change. They bring about some change in their activism, in their retaliation. So this is how I have like structured my presentation. Artist as activist. Uh, Here, I would like to say that I have not confined the meaning of activism to mere politics, to the political sphere. For me, and we all know that who an activist is. An activist is anyone who actually talks of change, who who aims to bring about change, who aspires to create something new. And in that sense, I see that all writers or all artists of the Dalit community are activists. That's why I've written artist as activist. And also, let me tell you that in my presentation, I'm not talking merely on literature, although we all are literature students, but my talk is not confined to literature, and that is why I have taken the broader term artist. Now, we all are aware of how Dalit literature actually started and why it started, because there was a kind of hegemony, the upper caste hegemony that existed in the mainstream. Again, I'm sorry I'm using these terms, but these are the popular terms which make sense. But I don't believe in this mainstream and the central and the peripheral and the marginal binaries, but just to make the talk more um, understanding. That's why I'm using these terms. So the earlier Dalit writers, they realized that they are completely, if not completely absent, they were silenced by the upper caste, writers, and which is why it was necessary for them to regain a kind of visibility. So things were happening in parallel. The activists were the pure activists were retaliating in the society. They were protesting in the society, and they and likewise in literature also the writers started talking about it. They started attempts to demolish the existing wrong practices or the hegemony of the mainstream writers in order to create a space for themselves, and which is why they started challenging the I have used in quotes legitimized apartheid. The term is borrowed from South Africa and the practice of apartheid in South Africa, which was done on the basis of the racial discrimination. But in case of Indian society also, we can see this caste apartheid being practiced. And why legitimized? Because many scholars have quoted scriptures and other sources where this kind of discrimination was kind of sanctioned. That is why it was like how different scholars in ancient India, how they try to legitimize this kind of apartheid, this kind of discrimination, and hence I've used this phrase. So, and this is how they started, the activists, the Dalit activists primarily, they started talking about their erasure in society and as also in literature. And just to make themselves visible, they started creating a new literature. Dalitodhar, we know that this term was first used by Jyotiba Phule, but let's go back even before to 13th, 14th century to the Bhakti poets. Although they were not directly talking about caste only, the Bhakti poets like Tukaram, Chaitan Mahaprabhu, and Jokhamela, Draidas, they all were talking about the egalitarian society. So in order to create an egalitarian society, obviously the caste, class, and all kind of all kind of binaries were addressed. So they were not specifically talking about caste, but their focus was to create a kind of egalitarian Indian society. Then let's move on to Phule, Periyar, Achyutanand, Guru Ghasidas in different parts of India. How they actually, started a movement to, to talk about the lacunae existing in the Indian society, and they started categorically talking about the caste discrimination. And from there, we come to the 20th century, where when Ambedkar took over, and why Ambedkar is very important in the liberation movement, because he actually instilled in amongst the Dalits that essential quality of Dalit consciousness. He actually, when he gave the slogan of educate, unite, educate, and agitate, he actually, instilled in the Dalits that pride kind of feeling, which I'll be talking about today in my presentation. So, which is why the towering figure of Ambedkar we cannot, um, ignore. Textuality as a system of representation, as already I have discussed in the previous slide, how it was necessary for for Dalit writers to make their presence felt in mainstream literature also, because they started questioning their erasure, their silence, their absence, and why they are active, like why we should have only Baka kind of character. I'm not questioning Mulk Raj Anand's erudition and his writings, but why we have only meek and submissive kind of characters. And this is one reason that initiated a debate between the Dalit writers and the non-Dalit writers, because there was a coffee toffee argument, which again is continuing. Who is a Dalit, who can write on Dalits? So there came a kind of the Dalits came up with an argument of Anuman and Anubhav. They believe that non-Dalit writers, they write on Anuman, that is speculation, whereas Dalit writers, they write on the basis of Anubhav. Okay, that is experience, which is why what they are writing, the Dalit writers are writing about their community, it is the most authentic, portrayal. And that is why they actually do not, they are not in favor of Baka like characters or Veluta like characters who are just accepting, they are just surrendering to their fate, and they are not resisting. And which is why you will find that you won't find such submissive characters in Dalit writers, in Dalit literature. They create characters who counter, who uh, okay, who counter this erasure, this silencing. And which is why they do not see their literature as mere literature. They call it mass movement. They call it as literature of protest. Okay, they call it literature of action. So through literature, how the writers were into activism. And also, if you had read some of the writings, you would have seen that how Premchand and Mulkraj Anand were writing. Their style, their language was very, very sophisticated, very polished. Whereas when we read, say for example, Jutan or Akkarmashi, I'm just giving you like random examples. The kind of language the Dalit writers have adopted, it's a very kind of challenging. It's kind of challenging the aesthetics of of literature itself. And which is why there was again a debate when the mainstream Indian literature said that no, the Dalit literature is no literature because it's the kind of language they are using is very uncouth and unpolished and unsophisticated. And but the writers, the Dalit writers, they are hell bent that no, this is the kind of life we live. This is the kind of language we speak. This is the we want to portray ourselves in true authenticity, and hence we will use our words as a speeding currents. We want to break the banks of the so-called mainstream sophisticated literature. So this is how this is how they brought in their representation in textual form. Okay, now I'm gradually moving. It's a very brief presentation. Without wasting time, I'm just coming to the main topic. The elite Dalit, as the title itself says, the trouble began here. I'm not talking about the first generation Dalits. I'm talking about the second generation Dalit writers or Dalit people. Uh, Thanks to Dr. Ambedkar and other the Dalit Panthers. Uh, I'm sorry for the interruption. Okay. Okay. So what happened? We can see that the second generation.
ठीक है ना क्लास गूगल
Just make a request to mute.
नोट ना कोड है नहीं तो मेरे में अरे कितना
Neha, sorry to disturb you. sorry to disturb you. Because some of the participants are not very careful about their mic, I have muted everyone. So can you just unmute yourself? Please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't realize that I was also put on the mute mode.
Yeah, now you're
Okay,
audible. Thank you.
okay. So let me talk about this slide. I was talking about the elite Dalit, and this is the second generation Dalits who were educated, who got the right to to education. And here the problem began because now, like we had in Africa, like the rise of the petty bourgeoisie or the comprador bourgeoisie, who actually were exposed to the Western education. I'm talking about Africa. So what happened? They started moving away from the main movement, the main liberation movement, the main struggle, and they started becoming quite selfish. And in their selfish, kind of gain, they wanted to rise up in the social strata. The same thing we can see happening in case of India with the Dalits. This Sanskritization process, this is the term used by Srinivasan. Now, what is Sanskritization? When that section of Dalits who actually were educated, now they started, they wanted to rise up in the social strata. Now, how could they do this? They could do only by mimicking the upper caste. They started emulating the culture, they started emulating the lifestyle of the upper caste, and we got a new class of Dalit, which we call the Brahmanized Dalit. Sorry for using this term because let me clear, it is not only for the Dalits who emulated the Brahmins, but this is a term used for the elite Dalit who were the mimic men, the comprador bourgeoisie of Boogie. And this is the category again labeled as Neo Kshatriya by Kachalaya, that this Neo Kshatriya or the Brahmanized Dalit, they started kind of imitating, and this is where I talk about the camouflaging of their identity. It is this generation who started using surnames. For example, in North India, we have this Kumar and Kumaris. These are the common surnames. Again, it should not be taken as a personal thing, but I'm just giving you random examples. So what they started doing is that they knew that from the surnames people could identify their identity, could identify their caste, and hence what they started doing, they started adopting the common surnames. And in their household also you would find the like Hindu gods and goddesses, the idols of Hindu gods and goddesses placed, and in their cuisine also there was some change. And in every manner, whether it be like talking, whether it be like any kind of lifestyle, any aspect of lifestyle, they started imitating the upper caste in order to Sanskritize, in order to rise up in the ladder, in the social strata. So what started happening with this Brahmanized Dalits, they started discarding, they started moving away from their Dalit roots. And which is why in between you will see that the Dalit protest movement, which was at peak somewhere with Ambedkar and also with Dalit Panthers, somewhere it got frizzled out because of this generation, because they started losing, as I mentioned, they started losing the Dalit consciousness, which was very, very essential in case of, in order to protest, in order to retaliate and fight back for your identity. So a kind of lull, a kind of amnesia, a kind of deliberate forgetfulness for their past was created. So this is the troubling, this was a troubling phase in Dalit protest movement. Yeah, here I would just like to talk about, I will just read a quote. Unapologetic of their Dalithood, the Gen X Dalits do not want to be seen merely as vote bank, but as thought bank. And again, I would like you people to pay attention to the term unapologetic, Dalithood, GenX, vote bank, and thought bank. Now, as I said in the beginning, the new generation Dalit, the third generation, if I may say, they are unapologetic. They are not ashamed of being Dalits. Yes, we are Dalit. They are taking it. They are taking pride, and they are declaring it openly. They are not camouflaging their identity, as was the case with their predecessors. They are, foregrounding their Dalithood. And that, and because of their education also, and because of the exposure to the Western world, or to, if not to the Western world, then to the urban world, and to technology, they have understood that they have a pivotal role to perform in contributing to the development of the Indian society. So that is why they do not want to be treated as merely vote banks, but thought banks. They are also the intellects, the intellectual, the storehouse of Indian society. Why should they be marginalized? Why should they be ignored and neglected, and they should be treated only as vote banks by the political leaders? So this is the kind of policy of exclusion they are revolting against. So they are saying that this kind of exclusion must stop. Okay, so who are the Gen X Dalit? As I explained in the beginning, that I, for my definition of Dalit youth, I'm referring to the generation born in the last decade of the 20th century and now. So you would see that because of, you know uh, globalization, liberalization, you would see that a trend began of urbanization. I mean, yes, what the early generation Dalit writers were talking about, they were basically confined to the rural India. Now Dalits are moving to urban India. That is why I said that if retaliation is there, if resistance is there, there would be some kind of discrimination, but the degree and the manner of discrimination would have changed. So what their grandparents generation had faced, and in the rural area, this generation is not facing those challenges. Their challenges, their issues are different, and this is what we need to address. So because of this exposure to the Western world, this exposure to urbanization, and also with English education, I'm not talking only about education, I'm talking about English education. They have, they have become, this technology has also become accessible to them, and because of this, world has become a global village. Now when I'm talking about global village, I am, what has happened with this? The Dalits, they are not confined to their region. First of all, within India, they could reach out to other Dalits within India, and also to Dalits outside India. And I'm not touching upon that area, but this, I'm just suggesting that Dalit diaspora is one of the newer research area to be studied. Dalit diaspora, the Dalit Sikh diaspora in Canada and others. So this is a newer area. So because of this technology, and because of the accessibility to education, English education particularly, the world has come very closer. It has become a global village. So earlier I talked about comprador bourgeois. Now I'm talking about this generation of Dalits as the nationalistic bourgeoisie. He talks about in decolonizing the mind that nationalistic bourgeoisie has also the same advantages, has also the exposure to the Western world, or to the English language. But what is the difference? They are actually using this knowledge for for the upliftment, for the okay.
Neha ma'am, sorry to disturb
No,
you.
no, it's okay. I do understand. I do
Yeah,
understand
yeah,
things.
there are some people who are not very well aware of this technology.
And we all are new to this, so we need to
Thank you.
cooperate.
Please carry on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I was talking about the nationalistic bourgeoisie, Yogi's nationalistic bourgeoisie. Similarly, we have this Gen X Dalits. Now, what they are doing, they are using this education, this technology to for the welfare and for the upliftment of your community, to retaliate again. So they have got access to the global platforms. They could talk about their issues, and the following slides would talk about. But one more change which I find in their works, their writings, and their activism, that they are not confined to mere anti-Brahminical. They do not have just the anti-Brahminical stand. They are also questioning the lacunae of their own community. They are also questioning the betrayal of the previous generation. Sorry, it's a very strong term, betrayal. but I'm just using it to differentiate between their predecessors and them. So this is a major change that we find in the new generation. And as I said, that they are not ashamed of their identity, and hence they are, using their surname also, and they're not hiding their Dalit identity. Okay, being becoming Dalit. Now, for this, I would just like to quote something from Suraj Yengre's, memoir, Caste Matters, and probably that those lines would be self-explanatory. How the GenX Dalits are applauding and celebrating their Dalithood. Now he says, I'm quoting: "Thus, being a Dalit is being now. It is being urgent. Taking the mantle of liberation from their predecessors, Dalits are excited to join the ranks of becoming liberators of their community. The confidence of carrying the self as a Dalit without the immediate fear of social death, psychic death, and spiritual death is a characteristics of being a Dalit." Now, this is something which we need to understand, that they have become fearless. That is why he talks about that there is no fear of social death, psychic death, spiritual death, and this is how they could develop the courage to wear their Dalit identity with pride, and they can use their surnames, their subcaste, and also we would see that they are now not confined only to their strategies, or their retaliation is not confined only to politics or to religious scriptures, but they are moving beyond that. And one thing which I'll talk about in depth is Dalit culture, which actually was not discussed by the previous generation activists. It was not much discussed by them. So this is, as Bolshoenka also talks about, that culture is something which is very important. And when the colonizers came during for colonization, they attacked the culture first, because the cultural bomb, again I'm quoting Googie, the cultural bomb which the colonizers dropped on the colonies, it made their work very easy, it made their work very simpler. So again, to counter the colonizers, we need to kind of uphold our own indigenous culture, our native culture. And probably this is what the new generation Dalits are doing. They are actually going back. They are not, ranting over the past. They are not merely talking about what the upper caste society has done to them. Rather, what they are doing, they are developing new strategies to promote their culture. This is something very important. And they are actually digging deep into their native culture, and from there they are bringing new ideas, new idioms, and they are talking about their folk culture, the typical the nuances of their own culture, which uh, first they were not talked about by the upper castes, and also by the Dalit writers, they were not focused much. Now, as I said, that it is my talk would focus on the contemporary Dalit activism. So because, as I said, that the problems changed, hence it was necessary to change the strategies. And one such thing that you would find, which was not there earlier, is the coming up of Dalit student politics. And this is, the new generation has realized that we need to organize at the institution level, we need to organize at the university, college level. We need to make ourselves visible, the community visible. And this student politics, Dalit student politics, I see it as a positive development. And it is a kind of how they are kind of representing their not only community, it is a kind of rights for them to be represented at the university, at the educational institution front. And I have just listed, I don't want to read out the names of these organizations, but I would just like to say that there are many organizations which are actually doing great work, and advanced literature. This is how they are. This is not my frame, my formation, but the way these Dalit, this generation prefers to describe itself. We are digitally advanced. We are writing digitally advanced literature, and again, this is they are how they are exploring the you know the online outlets, and again they are why they are exploring, because they want to dismantle the monopoly of the upper caste. And they believe that okay, online mediums are somewhat more democratic, and it would also help them in kind of establishing a global interaction with Dalit activists outside India or within India. So again, I would like to quote from Yashika that she says that these platforms help to spread ideas beyond the Dalit communities to a larger upper caste audience. So stories that would have flown under the radar or been tucked into the back pages of newspapers were catching the attention of thousands. Now this is how Yashika justifies this coming of uh, exploring the online uh, mediums. We have blogs, we have websites, we have like Twitter, Facebook accounts. So many. They are just exploring each and every social media, so as to become vocal, to make themselves visible and to make their issues more visible. I've just given a brief list of how they are, exploiting the digital space, and they are questioning the underreporting and a very selective reporting. Why only talk about the gang rapes and all these things? Why not talk about other things? I don't know how much time do I have. Otherwise, I would have given you in detail the details of these,
We have some
uh,
time. If
okay,
you wish, you can.
okay. I will prefer to talk about other things also, but then these, as you can see that these are some online magazines, there are some YouTube channels, and it was not a cakewalk for these people. It was really very challenging for them to come up with such such channels, such blogs, and uh, uh, you know uh, they faced threats. They sometimes it was like for roundtable, for example, roundtable India, this magazine had to be shut down for some time. Then again it came up. So they are continuously facing these threats and challenges, but then they are quite focused in their agenda. Art, culture, and rebellion. Now, this is again, I want to talk about much, and I briefly touched on this, in the beginning, that how culture is very important for the younger generation, and which is why they are going again back again and again to their distinct culture. And there is no more imitation or mimicking the upper caste. They are saying no to Sanskritization. They are creating counter cultures. The culture which already existed, which exists, but probably people were not talking much about. And unfortunately, the previous generation Dalits were also not much talking about their culture. And just one example I've given, Jai Bhim as a counter cultural code. So the salutation has also changed. It is no more namaskar, namaste, pranam. That is again very upper caste. Sorry, I'm being very bold, but I have to use these things in order to talk about my topic. So now they are more. They have changed the salutation also. They are talking. They love to call. They love to address with Jai Bhim instead of namaste and other things. So this is how they're trying to uphold their culture. because they have realized that no other person, no external person would come to their rescue. They have to, preserve their culture. They have to promote their culture. They have to foreground their culture. They have to make their culture visible. Then only they can actually, the rebellion, the protest can actually be wholesome. As we are talking about art, I'll elaborate further. We see them entering into other genres also. We can see them entering into cinema. We can see them entering into musical bands. I'll talk about them later. And art, when I say they are, you can just see that I've mentioned Dalit Cuisine Festival. Who would have imagined that there would be a cuisine festival also? And this is something I'm finding very, very interesting, and I want to do more reading on this. And iconography, that is statues and monuments of Ambedkar and Dalit readers. I come from Lucknow primarily, so basically, so I know how I know that Ambedkar Maidan and Ambedkar Sthal and Bodh Vihar, all that was created during Mayawati's regime. And now and then you would see in small nook and corners, if not other things, but then the statues of Ambedkar, uh, put there, which was not the case earlier. So through putting these statues also, I'm not talking about the bigger monuments like the Bodh Vihar or Ambedkar Maidan, all these things, but these statues of Ambedkar also at various crossroads or other places, through this also they are trying to make them visible. And again, I'm just referring to one crossroad in Lucknow, which is called Uda Devi Chauraha. And anyone who would have read about Uda Devi, she was in the Rani of Jhansi's group, the army, if we can say, but she came from the backward caste. And installing her statue at one of the reputed crossroad is again making the Dalit visible, the contribution visible. Something is happening, but unfortunately, all this happened only in Mayawati's regime. This we need to actually think about. So we have other festivals also. As I said, that they are not confined to the world of words, that is literature. They are entering into other aspects also, other cultural aspects also. Okay, music. I'm gradually coming towards the end of my presentation. Music, and as I subtitled, singing their identity in songs. And this is actually I came across this young girl, Ginni Mahi. I'm from, like, reading about her led me to to trace all these other singers from Dalit community. Ginni Mahi is a girl, she's a young girl of 19, 20 years. And as you can see, the name of her band, Chamar Pop. Now, Chamar, I don't know how many of you know that in North India, Chamar is a subcaste of Dalit community, and it is very loosely used as a derogatory term. It means if someone is looking filthy or uncouth, it is very easily, very casually, that person is called Chamar ho kya. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm touching, I'm becoming too very bold, but just see how this girl, she is not just talking about her caste. She's not just talking about Ambedkar and her community. She has labeled the band as Chamar Pop. So again, no feeling ashamed of the identity, rather declaring, yes, I am Chamar. And I just want to talk about two of her famous songs. Danger Chamar. Again, this was the first song which made her popular. Danger Chamar. Again, it is that aggression is there, that fiery tone is there, that yes, I am Chamar, but I'm danger. You need to be very, very cautious about me. And the other song again is Main fan Baba Sahab di haan. That is in Punjabi. I'm the fan of Baba Sahab. So I mean, when I was reading about her, she says that I want to make a career in music, but what is that music to me? I just don't want to use it as a profession, but I want to make it as, kind of my music should empower me, music should empower my community. So that is why I have labeled that music, when they are singing their identity in their songs, they are not demanding sympathy, they are talking about empowerment. And after reading Give Me Mahi, I just came across this rapper from Orissa, Sumit Samoth. Okay. Should I mute, Dr.
Yes, ma'am.
Banerjee?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, fine. So I want you people to just see not just the names of these singers, but also the band names which they have given. Now, for example, Sumit Samos, and he's a rapper. I mean, we also should understand that since this is new generation, they are not, yes, they are. There is nothing, no animosity against the traditional music or the conventional music, but they know that this generation is more into pop and rock music. Sorry, I'm a layman in music, so I'm just using these terms. So how to get the main idea is to get their message across. So they are using these latest forms, the pop music, the rap music, but what the content is, again, Dalit. They are it is full of Dalit activism. And his band, or he calls himself as the Lit Boy. Okay. And then again, the other band from Chennai, we have the Casteless Collective. I'm not elaborating on all these things, but I want my audience to, whenever they get the time, and if at all they are interested, these can be taken up in as independent, studies, independent research. So how these people, these young people are, exploring. They're not leaving any stone unturned. They are not confining themselves to politics or to literature, but they are entering into various facets of art to talk about their community and their rights, and their protest, to register their protest. Film. And it was again, during my research, during my reading on Dalit activism, I came across this Dalit Film and Cultural Festival, which is quite interesting because now, again, I'm sorry, I am, since I'm coming from the Hindi belt, I am exposed only to the Bollywood cinema, and I find Bollywood cinema to be very, very casteist. Uh, why these rich people in Karan Johar's film or such films, they have the surnames like Malhotras, Oberoys, Singhanias, and I'm sure you must be knowing that these are the high caste names, upper caste surnames. Why I was actually like curious to know why the if Bollywood is also not propagating, if not deliberately, but indirectly, Bollywood is also talking, talking about, is very, very casteist. First of all, they don't want to talk about caste issues. We have very few films. Sujata is one film, if I can remember, in 60s, 70s, Sujata. And of late, we have films, but they are treated as art films, or offbeat films, parallel cinema. We have such kind of names. Article 15. I wonder how Article 15 could be treated. It was treated as mainstream cinema. But why Bollywood? I'm sure in other parts of the country also, why they are very, very restrictive in talking about the Dalit issues and discussing Dalit issues in film. And the names, actually the names of these rich people, I'm not a fan of Karan Johar and all such, because they create a very fancy world, which I'm against. So when Dalit filmmakers like Paranjit, Nagraj Manjule, when they are coming up with their films, they are not making films merely, they are using their films to amplify the voice of their community. They are not using, they are using films as a retaliation again. They are they are indirectly questioning the mainstream cinema, why we are left out, why you are not talking about us, why something very strange when I was like watching this Super 30 film. I mean, again, a question. This is a very curious question. Why, whenever we want to show a character from Bihar, I mean, whether it be Hrithik Roshan or in Urta Punjab, we have this Alia, but why we have to darken the complexion? Why we have to, darker the shade of the complexion? Whenever we talk about Dalit in the films, first of all, they are absent, and again, you talk about the color thing, the complexion thing. Why do they have to do this thing? I mean, that means a kind of stereotype notion they have about of Dalits. It is not a very good understanding. They have very conservative understanding, and probably this this is the reason why we have only Oberois and Singhanias and Malhotras in our films as the rich people. So these filmmakers, they are questioning these things. And as I said, I have mentioned that the Dalit Film and Cultural Festival, this as you can see, that this was an initiative of United States Ambedkarites. And now again, I'm just going back that how education, English education and technology is actually helping the new generation Dalits to reach out to Dalits and other, subaltern people across the world. So they are bringing the voices together at the global platform. So this was an initiative of Suraj Yengre, thanks to Suraj Yengre and United States Ambedkarites, that they actually organized this festival, Dalit Film and Cultural Festival. This happened only last year, and it was attended by so many, like again, the Dalit filmmakers, and there was an exhibition of books also and other such, they showcased. So this was again used as not just as a festival, as I've mentioned, but again as a movement. Through films, like we are the filmmakers, we will use our films to voice and to amplify ourselves, our existence. Yeah, this being the penultimate slide, cuisine, as I mentioned, the food festival. Now, I would not name any university, but it pains me uh, to see that our university mess. I mean, I have seen a couple of them. Why they are, you know, they are dictated by the dominant caste. I mean, if a university is in a area where the dominant ideology is of vegetarian, I mean, they would not serve the non-veg food. Whereas, like the students would be like studying in that university from various parts of the country, they would be coming from different cultural backgrounds. Yet one dominant ideology would dictate what would be the menu in the mess. So this is again troubling, and probably I'm one of the mess coordinators. So this troubles me here also. That why, like, why this freedom to eat is also not there. That is why when I'm talking about food festival, this question, the freedom to eat, this actually propelled some of the students in some of the Indian institutions, Indian universities, to come up with festivals. Okay, this is our food. This is we will eat. Why should you declare one food, one kind of food to be unconsumable here? Why are you dictating? Means there is no freedom to eat also. So. Like this is like I've given you example of Osmania University, but I'm sure there would be many others. And one thing more, all those who are interested in sharpening their culinary skills, they would have, like, I'm sure they would have read a couple of Indian cuisine books or the continental dishes and all these things. But when it comes to Indian recipes, Indian dishes, yes, I have seen South Indian dishes, one section on South Indian dishes, one section on Bengali, one Punjabi, one all these things. But I really wonder why there is no section on Dalit cuisine. I mean, why should we assume that every community consumes the same food? And which is why, again, I must congratulate the contribution of these people like Shahu Patole and other such people who have taken up the initiative of, compiling their cuisine. These are some of the books that I've mentioned, and there is a separate study going on. I've just given you one example of the Pune University. Um, there is a separate study going on to kind of preserve the Dalit cuisine, compile Dalit cuisine, and propagate it, make it popular. So all these things are happening. So in this way, I'm just winding up my talk. In this way, I just try to capture the film, the music, the theater, the food, etc. How, just to substantiate my talk, that how Dalit, the new generation Dalit, is not confined to literature merely. They know that they have to make themselves visible, so which is why they have to explore different aspects of culture and art. They have to register their resistance in every sphere of life, and that is why to answer this dominance and the hegemony of the upper caste, they have to declare that yes, we have arrived. It was not enough to declare in the early literature only, but now I have like written in bold, cultural reawakening, and this was actually the thrust of my talk. That it is not just that education is making them empowered, or reservation policies or other such policies are making them empowered. No, they are kind of creating counter history. They are kind of becoming aware, and they sensitize, and also proud of their own culture. And here I would like to end the talk with a few lines from Suraj Yengre. I quote: the Dalit community is having its Harlem moment at present. It is now able to articulate loudly and clearly through words and action, becoming more global and more reachable than ever. In the revolutionary age of technologies of communication and new expression of freedom, Dalits are claiming their rightful position in the armors of justice and democracy. Dalits are the recently freed untouchables, the second generation of constitutionally freed citizenry who are now coming out of their inbred shackles and segregate ghettos to combat the enforced Brahminical societal codes. I unquote. And with these lines, I end my presentation. Thank you so much for listening to me. So,
Thank you
Dr.
for
Banerjee, that's all from my end. Yeah.
thank you for such an exhaustive lecture. And
I don't know how much. As I said, that I've just like tried to share what I'm reading these days. It is not a kind of research or anything, but just to share with my academicians fraternity that yes, we can take up individual research in these areas. Yeah.
it clearly shows that you are reading a lot. There's no doubt about
Yeah.
it. And
Thank you so much.
kudos to you under such humid, hot. I know Rajasthan now will be experiencing more than 40 centigrades.
Yeah,
You are
it
able to
is.
manage, and the location of your university is also in a very open area. So kudos to you. You are able to concentrate in such heat, humid, and this corona scare all around. Thank
Thank
you
you
very
so very
much
much.
for such a erudite and well researched presentation. And I'm happy to inform you that although your presentation has been more than 1.5 hours,
Oh,
uh,
I didn't realize the time.
we have
Okay.
more than 160 participants with us till now, and there has been some very interesting questions that has been posted in the chat group, which I was able to recover a few of them. I would like, before I put the questions to you, I would like to inform all around here who is participating that our objective of GNOSIS lecture series is, as Dr. Neha just now, before she started, she said that she is exploring the field. And that is what is our objective. Our objective of GNOSIS lecture series is not to be a center and a margin kind of a discourse that we need to get engaged. Our objective is that we are researching on a particular topic, and we are sharing our topic and our experience, and how as participants we are receiving it, and how well can we utilize those expert lectures and inputs and advices in our own projects or through our own students, be it MPhil students, dissertation, MPhil dissertation, or PhD dissertation. That is the aim of this GNOSIS lecture series. So with that comment, I would like to move ahead with some of the observations, because there has been some very hard observations that has been put across, and I'm sure that we are all here to discuss in a very academic friendly manner. And one more thing, I'm sorry to say that I was forced to move, or I was forced to move out one or two people who were not able to somehow cope with the sound technology. I had to just move them out of the lecture. So I'm really sorry for that. For the well-being of others, for the benefit of others, for the interest of others, I had to do it. I took that responsibility as the host. I'm sure I'll get the comment through the email. So let us first, Dr. Neha, congratulate you. You have really presented a very well exhaustive, well researched presentation you have made, and it clearly shows that you are reading a lot, as I said. So let us move ahead with some of the questions, Dr. Neha. I hope you have some time.
Yeah, please.
Yes. So the first question comes from Dr. Rohini Jha from Patna. She questions that why second gen sorry, just a second, yeah, it's from yeah, it's a very interesting question. The first question from Tanveer Sahnaz. He is working as an assistant professor in RBC College, Naihati, near Calcutta. He is saying that it's not a particular question, but what is the impact of social distancing on Dalits in the wake of Corona pandemic? How will be they treated post pandemic? What's your take on it?
I'm sorry, I have not explored this area. I'm like, I've never thought about that in this pandemic. Also, we will like kind of segregate and have this kind of discrimination. I mean, I'm sorry, I never thought about this, but uh, I mean, how to take it, because the entire humanity is suffering, and then how can we talk about that? How the Dalits would be treated post COVID-19?
Yeah, so I think Tanveer, I will share with you ma'am's email ID. You can carry ahead your
Yeah, please,
discussion.
please,
Yeah.
because this comes as
Yeah.
because this time, these times when we are really like the entire humanity is suffering. So the caste question here, talking about in this context, I don't think that the casting, but when we see this migrant, yes, migrant laborers and their case is different, but then you never know about the mentality, and I think that this surely depends upon the mentality of the people, because I don't think that there here any caste question should come, if at all. Yeah, please.
Yeah, the second question is from Dr. Rohini from the Department of English, Patna University. She asks you that, do you think non-Dalit writers could justify Dalit literature? How do you think speculation or experience, which is more acceptable, and why?
Um, mm, as I said in during my presentation, that this is just a coffee toffee argument. If you remember, like when we were kids, there was this coffee bite candy. So the coffee toffee argument still continues. That the Dalits, they say that no, we will only write, we can only write, and since you do not have the direct experience, how could you write something which we read in feminist literature also? But I'm of the view that as per we have read literature, um, I'm sorry, I don't know if Dr. Rohini has read a couple of Dalit literature, Dalit texts also, but I find a great difference between how Mulk Raj Anand and Premchand were writing, how Arundhati Roy was writing, and like, let's not include Arundhati in that. And when it comes to the Dalit writers, they are very unabashed. They do not care for the stylistic features, as I said, that they were using, words as speeding currents. They were not concerned about the aesthetics established, the established aesthetic order of the mainstream literature. So this is the difference that I found, and on this basis I can say that uh, uh, I would not say that non-Dalit writers cannot write on Dalit and they should not write on about Dalits, but yes, to some extent, that kind of 100% justification. This is my personal view. 100% justification cannot be done to the because of the difference of the Anuman and Anubhav. This is my personal observation.
Uh, the third question is by Swithil Ramchandran. She is a PhD scholar from the Department of Women's Studies, University of Madras. She asks you, and I quote, ma'am, do you think there is a significant difference in the mode of protest and activism of first generation Dalits and the current third generation Dalits, who are seemingly more privileged than their ancestors?
Very rightly said. Yes, they and in fact the third generation Dalit, the present generation, they are not denying that we are not privileged. Yes, but they at the same time they're talking about the challenges. As I said in the very beginning, that if there is resistance, it means that there would be some kind of discrimination. The degree and the kind of discrimination would have changed, no doubt, but there is something, and which is why. Uh, like in comparison to their previous generation, yes, they are privileged, they have the accessibility, as I said, of education, of technology. They can just reach out to the global audience and they could connect globally. That no doubt is there. And because of their different kind of challenges, we keep hearing of what happened at IIT Madras, what happened at HCU, and I'm sure these are just a few incidents that we read, but these are things that are happening across the country. So if they are privileged in some manner from their previous generation, they are also facing some different kind of discrimination. So they are using this kind of privilege to develop new strategies to counter the dominant ideology. I hope I've answered the question.
Yeah, of course. Next is from Dr. Meenakshi Verma. She says that were the Bhakti poets consciously egalitarian, or were they beyond everything spiritual? That was the reason to interpret them as social equalizer. Were they not talking of something beyond the claustrophobic worldly dichotomies?
That is why when I was talking about Bhakti poets, I said that they were not primarily talking about the casteless society, but they were mainly talking about the egalitarian world. I mean, that was their main idea. They actually what is bhakti? You have to completely surrender yourself. I mean, it is actually kind of transcending this materialistic world. So bhakti poets, whereas they were in like more interested in kind of uh, transcending in order this leaving the materialism behind. But I quoted them, or I referred to them, because when we talk about Dalit activists, beginning with Pule and Periyar and other such people, we tend to take reference from Kabir Das, who, if not directly, but they were also touching upon this kind of equality in the society. So Bhakti poets, if we want to talk about in Dalit movement, yes, I would not put them directly into them, into the Dalit movement. That yes, from Bhakti poets, the Dalit liberation movement began. But some cue has to be taken from them. They were actually talking of macro things. They were talking about many things. They were not specifically targeting at caste system, but caste system uh, was one of the factors they were addressing, not directly, but yes, when they were talking about you know egalitarian and equal society, equality in society, they touched upon those factors. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Next question from Dr. Ganeshan. Uh, Dr. Ganeshan is an assistant professor at Ramakrishna Mission Vivekanand College, Chennai. His question is, are Dalits successful in Brahman impersonification?
I would just like to get a bit clarification. What exactly is intending to mean by Brahmanical sorry, what did you say?
Impersonation.
Sorry,
Yeah,
couldn't.
yeah, yeah.
So is he talking specifically of the Brahmin? Because when I was talking about Brahmanized Dalit, I did not talk about the Brahmanical community specifically. I was talking about the upper caste. So
Yeah, so
and this was,
Dr. Ganeshan
yeah,
might
yeah.
contact you over
So
email.
just to give a brief answer to that, uh, when we talk about success, it is a very relative term, because I find that when I talk about when I read about the Brahmanized Dalit, I compare them, or I read them something similar as the the half caste in South Africa. Not the real blacks, not the real whites, but the half caste. Okay, the mixed blood. So whereas the Brahmanized Dalit, in order to get assimilated into the upper caste, they start imbibing and they start imitating the style of the upper caste community, thinking that one day they would be accepted. But in my opinion, all through their life they remain on the hyphen, like a Trishanku. They cut off their roots, their native roots. They distance themselves from their native roots, nor are they completely accepted, because for the upper caste they they remain kind of okay, outsiders. So I don't think that they are completely successful in uh, getting into the Brahmanized fold. Yeah.
Harpreet Kaur has posed because Dalit is a Dalit literature is a literature which will have all the factions of answers and responses. Harpreet Kaur has interestingly put, it's the same debate which we have regarding Munshi Premchand's writing,
Mhm.
that uh, being a non-Dalit, he is portraying Dalit, how apt it is. So
Again,
there's a two school of thought. So Harpreet, that's my observation. Harpreet Kaur question
yeah.
is a different one. Uh, I just telling the response. There are two kinds of responses. So an interesting response here by Harpreet Kaur. Uh, Harpreet says, she says that how to ascertain the experience of injustice and inequality is not exaggerated in the Dalit writings in an attempt to vent their anger on being wronged by society.
This is this is a tough question to answer, because uh, this is the same thing when we talk about autobiographies or history. How to completely how to accept the authenticity. I mean, uh, when we read of history, and that is why we say, now we have begun to say that history has always been his story and never her story, and that is why we are getting to read different retellings and other things also. So to assert and to ascertain that the authenticity, and to say that it is not an exaggeration, I'm sorry, I'm not a scholar to answer this. But as then why these questions are not raised in case of other, I'm sure this would be applicable in case of black literature also. This would be applicable in case of aboriginal writings also. I mean, somewhere we have to draw the line, somewhere we have to tutor ourselves. No, we have to believe, we let's accept the authenticity to some extent.
As you gave the example of Super 30, so we have a question from the land of Super 30. Uh,
Okay.
Tapeshwar Prasad, by professionally, Tapeshwar Prasad is a graphic designer and an author from St. Xavier's College, Patna. And he says that as I am from Bihar, how is that the film Super 30 type of film could pull down the conscience of the so-called elites? who think it could demean the research in the name of color and caste other than and only of Bihar. How could we enrich our understanding in the light of white people hegemony?
In the light of this question only, I shared my like when I was talking about Super 30 or Urta Punjab, or when I was talking about Karan Johar's film. These are the issues that trouble me, and I keep discussing it with my students. That don't you think that we have like our cinema has created a kind of schism, a kind of gulf, and cinema the filmmakers have a greater responsibility because it is like it has a mass appeal. What all the filmmakers would project, the mass would take it. So the way if we are I completely agree with sir, because I mean this is, if you people have watched Super 30, why it was necessary. I mean, Super 30 was to talk about a particular character, the real character, and his achievements, his struggles, and his contribution. Why, in order to kind of create that kind of character, Hrithik Roshan's face had to be, or his complexion had to be darkened. So I have certain problems with this kind of stereotyping in Bollywood cinema. I don't know about regional cinema, but yes, we need to. And I'm not sure, I've not watched Article 15. I would like to give one example here. Something I was reading um, about the film, and I'm not sure all those who have watched the film, there is some scene where it was required for a character to get into the gutter. I'm not sure, I've not watched the film, but it was just reading and that character who played that role was not from Bollywood. He was an actual Dalit. So this again raises another question, that when you have to portray a very neat and that kind of job, a professional person, you have like heroes like Ayushmann Khurrana, you have Hrithik Roshan coming and playing. But when you have to get really inside the gutter, then the filmmaker has to approach the person, the real person from that community. So these are, I'm not answering directly to the question, but I'm just counter questioning, and I'm like further questioning my audience. We need to really think on these lines, that uh, have we actually done away with these discrimination somewhere or the other? In some manner or the other, we are like this elite dumb. And when I talk about elite dumb, I don't spell it as ELITEDOM. Rather, I say ELITEDUMB. For me, it's like elite dumb. The elites, they are living in their own world, and they have they have created a kind of impression, a stereotype, which needs to be, probably that's why the filmmakers like Manjule and Paranjit and all these people are coming together to kind of rectify the things in the cinema. Yeah.
And referring to your Article 15 only, we have a question by
Yeah.
Dr. Smiti. She says that
Yeah.
what I have observed is even in that movie, it is the higher caste police officer who gives voice and justice to the lower. What do you think?
Exactly. Yes. As I said, that I've not watched the movie. Initially, I was inclined to watch, but after reading the reviews, again, there is a kind of, somewhere I feel, without even seeing the movie, that somewhere again we are looking up to the upper caste. Okay, we are feeble. We are, we cannot speak. You have to speak on our behalf. And you know and I feel like, although it is treated as a parallel cinema, not parallel cinema labeled, but I feel that it was a sheer commercialization of the thing. I'm sorry, I'm hurting the sentiments of many of you, but I found that it was a kind of commercialization, kind of money making thing, because that incident was in, and certain kind of incidents were in vogue, and probably that's why the filmmaker kind of attempted this. It was not sheer out of social issue. And I really have this problem, why you have to kind of look up to the upper caste character only to get your voice.
Uh,
Yeah.
Dr. Akhila R. Pillai from Marge Gregorius College, Kerala, asks you that can you please talk a little about the Dalit Panthers and the issues they address?
Uh, Dalit Panthers was a group that came into existence on 9th of July 1972, and it was in line with the Black Panthers movement in the USA. And if you have read something about them, the blacks in America, they were marginalized because of the race, and they formed this organization, BPP, Black Panthers Party, under the leadership of Du Bois and all these people. And Dr. Ambedkar was highly impressed and inspired by Black Panthers Party, although he was not alive when this Dalit Panther Party came into existence. But then the kind of framework he provided. So eventually, because we have this comparative study of the African American and the Dalits, it is a very common study which is being done or which has been done in the past also. So in the line of the Black Panthers Party, the Dalit Panthers under like Raja Dhale, Namdeo Dhassal, all these people, they came together. They were writers and they were activists both. So when they came together, they formed this organization, or they formed this group, and which actually was initiated to address the issues of their community in writing as well as in the society at the political front. And from later on, because of some difference of opinion, the Dalit Panthers party got frizzled out, and we had other subdivisions also. And that is why the initial writers, if you read Namdeo Dhassal, only I'm quoting Golpitha and other, they are actually I should not be using the term, but the language is very abusive, very abusive. But this is how they started writing. This how they started giving back to the society. That this is how we are treated. So that's why when we talk about say the Bahujan Samaj Party in the present time, which was the effort of Kansi Ram and other such people. So the roots of Bahujan Samaj Party, we can say that they lie in the Dalit Panthers Party, from where this. So it was a political movement which got textualized in literature. Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am. The last question. Uh, this is by Dr. Shijit. Uh, he says that, ma'am, thank you for, I quote him, ma'am, thank you for the informative lecture and hinting explorable areas for us. We know that massive conversion of Dalits are happening in many parts of India. Aren't they replicating the same faulty Brahmanized Dalit pattern even in the third generation instead of boldly affirming their identity?
Yes, I agree with Dr. Shrijit, because now when we are talking, as that is why I was referring to Gugi's comprador bourgeoisie and nationalistic bourgeoisie, because these are the two strands of petty bourgeoisie in decolonizing the mind, as we read. So we just cannot conclude that the third generation or this millennia Dalits are, they are, the entire generation is into this kind of activism. We have another strand of this Gen X who is following the footsteps of their predecessors of the Sanskritized Dalits. So, which is why this kind of conversion, or upward mobility, even without conversion, also we are seeing that how they are imitating the upper caste, and this trend is going on. But simultaneously, I just wanted to focus. My focus was on one strand, the nationalistic bourgeoisie of Googie. This strand, which is exploring new aspects of retaliation, developing newer strategies of resistance. I focused on that, but you are very right. There exists that continues to exist that strand also, who is into conversion and Sanskritization. We are not done away with that process.
Thank you, ma'am. It goes without saying that I have received innumerable, compliments for your talk, and I cannot, I cannot just keep it serially, but there are plethora of compliments to you that are given for your lovely presentation, for your expansive and well-researched presentation. And on behalf of Team GNOSIS, you are an integral part of GNOSIS and Dadvoj. So on behalf of Team GNOSIS, it was a tremendous, exploration of Dalits and going through the different genres, the movements that Dalit movement has had in India. And on behalf of Team GNOSIS, I thank you that irrespective of not keeping well, you are sitting constantly for the last 2 hours and have tried to answer as vocally and as clearly as you can. So thank you very
Thank you
much
so
for
much.
making this session a very enriching one. I'm sure the participants, you will be surprised that there are still 120 participants who are online with us, irrespective of the internet issues that we have. And
Thank you
so
so
this goes
much.
without showing the kind of presentation that you have made today and the kind
Thank you
of
so very
impression that you
much.
have created on the scholars and academia all around India and abroad. Thank you so much.
We need,
It was
thank you.
absolutely a pleasure. And
Thank you.
your closing remarks, ma'am.
I will close with the same thing that I began my lecture with. Um, as I took this opportunity to share my reading, as Sir said, Dr. Banerjee said that yes, I'm reading a lot these days. Yes, so I would be really happy if we all could come like together and see. I have just opened the windows, different windows. We can take up independent research because there, at one point of time, after doing my PhD on Dalit literature, I felt a kind of saturation, and I left for a couple of years. I left this literature altogether, but of late last year, like since last year, I have developed a newer interest in this, because I realized that what I did in my PhD was something of the past. Now there are newer aspects, newer branches coming up in Dalit activism that need to be explored. So I simply shared what I'm reading these days, and I've just tried to open some windows to you people, if anyone would be interested to go out and venture into deep into the areas. And I would like to thank Dr. Banerjee and the audience and the participants to listening to me. And I just wanted to make a very simple and lucid manner in order to just share my thoughts to you people. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
very
much,
much
ma'am.
for this.
Thank you, dear participants, for taking out your valuable time. And thank you, ma'am. We hope to meet tomorrow at 5:20. Tomorrow's lecture will be on decolonization by Dr. Sayan De from Bhutan University. Thank you so much for joining. It was a pleasure to meet
Okay.
all of you and engage in this academic feast. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.